This conference will now be recorded.
The data scientists usually follow these type of data. They are structured data, unstructured data, and semi-structured data. Structured data are the properly organized with rows and columns, and where you have proper data fit in, and you can use as it is. You need not do any modification, and it is available in Excel file or SQL Server, Oracle database, etc. Then the second one is the unstructured data. Unstructured data unstructured data is where you are having a unprofessional or where it is not organized, where the data is not organized, and it is not in numbers. So you get all those data from the Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, etc. And it is a difficult task for the data scientists to structure them, and it takes immense working out of with coding, etc. And the third one is the semi-structured data. Semi-structured data where you have both the proper few are in the proper structured way and few are unstructured. So the data that you get from this structure, you can modify or you can manipulate it very easily, and you can make it into structured data. In today's world, structured data is 10 percentage you say availability, and the semi-structure is also 10 percentage. 80 percentage of the data is in the form of unstructured data. So it is the responsibility of the data science to convert this 80 percentage into a structured data. So the next very important type of data, according to the mathematician, is the discrete data and continuous data. The discrete data is defined as where the information is in categories, and it is only in finite number of values, and it is distinct and separate. And for example, you can say in a classroom how many girls were there and how many boys are there. And continuous data is in the absolute form, where you can measure and you can take any value, and it is both in the finite or the infinite interval. And for example, say for example, if a student has scored 50 and a half or 65, 65.5, etc. And the other examples include social current data, seismic records, etc. Then statistical data, the data is actually obtained from population or from sample. What is population? Population is the whole set of people who are considered for the study. Say for example, you are considering a coronavirus case, and all those who are infected with or positive cases will be the population. And sample, what is a sample? Sample is a subset of population, where you take few number of people from representing the population. Say out of suppose say 5 lakh people are affected. From the 5 lakh people, you take around 2 lakhs or 3 lakhs affected positive people, so that will become a sample. So the next very important thing that is required or very important to understand for the data scientists is the probability concept. The probability concept is defined as the likelihood of an event to occur, and this event has a particular outcome, and the outcome is uncertain. You don't know what will be the outcome. Suppose the famous example goes as the tossing of the dice, and in that suppose you have two dice with 6 maximum numbers, and what is the probability of getting 2 or 3 in one particular event. So the value of the probability ranges between 0 to 1, and the different terminologies used in the probability are experiment, the outcome, and the event. Experiment is the basic study that you're going to do. Say, for example, the whether the rainfall, you're going to predict the rainfall, whether rainfall is going to occur or not. So that is the experiment that you're going to conduct for whole week, and the outcome is for today. You're supposed to say for 1 week you're going to study. What is the outcome for today? Whether it will rain or not. It will rain. If it is raining, it is one outcome. That is the only outcome that you will get. And events will be for different days. So today is one event, next is tomorrow is another event, and Wednesday or Thursday is the next event. So these are the terminologies that you're going to get it or use it when you're going to use the probability concept. The next important thing that you have to understand is the types of probability. There are 3 types of probability: marginal, joint, and conditional. The marginal probability is where only one event occurs, and that is, you can say, P of X, or the probability of X occurring. And what is the probability of getting, say, we are going to have an experiment, say, only for today, whether the rain is going to occur or not, or rain is going to come or not today. So if it is not coming, that is an outcome, and you are sure that because for past 4 days it hasn't occurred. And the joint probability talks about the 2 particular events occurring, and out of the 2 events, whether the outcome, what will be the outcome, what is the probability that you will get. Suppose Monday and Tuesday you're going to find out that's the event, and you're going to find out today what is the probability that it's going to do. And conditional probability is where you are giving a condition. You're giving a condition that yesterday it has rained, giving a condition. Yesterday it has rained, so what will happen today? Then I will explain to you the marginal and the joint and conditional with an example or case. Suppose a researcher has got the information and the demographic profile goes like this. That is from 4 different regions: north, south, west, east, and the departments in which they are working. It is a, say for example, a job satisfaction study, and they have got this information. So we want to find out what is the probability that a respondent is from north. So here the probability is that 82 by 200, and the probability is that 0.41. And the joint probability case goes like this. That is, what is the probability that a respondent is from East and working in HR department? And the probability East and HR, the probability will be 16 by 200, that is 0.08. And the conditional probability that you want to find out the probability of a respondent from South and is in the HR department. So here the probability goes like this: 18 by 34, that is 0.53. Okay, the next important thing is the probability distribution. There are 4 types of probability distribution: binomial, Poisson, normal, and Bernoulli. Here, first one is binomial distribution, where there is likelihood of a value that will take 1 or 2 independent values under a given set of parameters or assumptions. So here there are only 1 outcome for each trial, and it is a binomial probability distribution, and each trial has the same probability of success, and each trial is mutually exclusive. Example here you can give as whether in US whether a Republican or Democratic party will win an upcoming election. Or another example is Manchester United will win or lose the Premier League Cup. And this is how the graph will look like for the binomial distribution. The next one is the Bernoulli, which is another form of binomial. It is a random experiment that has only two outcomes, and usually it is success or a failure. Only one event occurs here, and only a single trial. And the example is the mean, and here the mean, mode, and median are all equal. So here, as I said, only one outcome and one single trial. So here the probability is, say for example, for tossing a coin is 0.4 as a success, and the failure will be 0.6. The next one is a Poisson distribution. Poisson distribution shows how many times an event is likely to occur within a specified period of time. So it is a discrete probability in nature, and independent events which occur at a constant rate within a given interval of time. And here it is to predict the probability of certain events from happening when you know how often the event has occurred. And the example here you can say is that a video store average 400 customers every Friday night. What is the probability that 600 customers will come in on any given Friday night? So here the graph of Poisson distribution looks like this for a study. Then the normal distribution, which is popularly used by the researchers, and this is the assumption which has to be followed for many statistical tools. The normal distribution refers to a function that represents the distribution of many random variables as a symmetrical bell-shaped graph, and it is a continuous probability distribution, and its mean, mode, median all are equal, and it will be equal to 0. Mean will be equal to 0, and the standard deviation will be 1. And the skewness and kurtosis, which is very important, which will be easier for us to find out whether a particular data set or observation is a normal distribution or not. So it is skewness should be closer to 0, and kurtosis should be closer to 3. And it is symmetrical, and all the data or distributions are not symmetrical. If it is not symmetrical, there are other types of tests that can be followed. So here, this is a typical normal distribution, which is shown in this graph, and it is a bell-shaped curve. The curve is bell-shaped. The next thing in normal distribution itself, as I said, kurtosis and skewness. The kurtosis helps us to find out the peakness of the data, and the skewness helps us to find out whether there is a flatness in the data or curve. And kurtosis are of 3 types: lepto, meso, and platykurtic. And it is given higher the peak, it is the lepto, second is meso, and third one is the platykurtic. And in the skewness, the degree of distortion from the symmetrical bell curve is probability distribution. If the data is towards the right side, it is positive skewness, and data are towards this particular side. And if it is negative skewness, it is the data are towards the other end of the side. The next thing very important is we move on to the statistics, which is the core topic of our presentation. What is statistics? Statistics is a collection of data, and after you collect the data, you analyze it. And after analyzing, your work should not stop with it. You should interpret the results, and then you should present in a more appealing way that whoever the stakeholders will definitely understand the results. Then the types of statistics are of 2 types: descriptive statistics and the inferential statistics. And first one is a descriptive statistics. Descriptive statistics is where you try to summarize the data that you have in your hand, with the help of few techniques, or that is, say for example, in this example, there is a data given of age, gender, etc. So how you can summarize this? You can summarize with the help of the count, how many observations are there, and what is the mean age of the study, and how many males are there and how many females are there, and their dispersion with the observation. And here an example is given in the form of pie chart. This is also a representation of the descriptive. So I have given the descriptive statistics where it summarizes the and describes the characteristics of a data set, and the methods to which is numerical and graphical. The numerical methods are measure of frequency, count, percent, and frequency. Then a measure of central tendency, you can calculate mean, median, mode, and then you can also calculate measures of dispersion. They are variance, standard deviation, range, and IQR. IQR is the interquartile range. I'm not going into deep all these, as I understand that you know the meaning of all these. And then there is also a measure of association. You try to find out between the variables. And the graphical methods are, if you have univariate data, you can apply histogram, pie chart, bar chart, box, etc. And if you have a bivariate data, biplots, scatter plots, then multivariate data, you can go for 3D, web diagram, cluster centroid, spatial mapping, etc. The next is the very important thing for the data science is the inferential statistics. Inferential statistics refers to how you're going to infer the result, or and also how you're going to analyze the data set that you have in your hand. After you have the data set, you try to analyze with a certain statistical tool, and then make an interpretation and inferential in a meaningful manner. So here the main objectives of the inferential statistics is to generalize the result that you have made with the sample data to the population. Then hypothesis testing is a very important aspect in the inferential statistics, and the final objective is to predict the variable, whatever objective you have in your hand. Say for example, as I mentioned in the beginning, corona is the hot topic now, and what will be the probable coronavirus cases in the future. So you would have seen in many TVs and news channels applying the statistical tools and giving you predictions that what will happen in the next week and next month subsequently. So here I'm going to discuss in detail the hypothesis testing for you. And the terminologies that you come across in the hypothesis testing are the null hypothesis, alternative hypothesis, what is the level of significance concept, decision rule that you have to make, then one tail tells and two tail tells, and probability value. So these are very important for the inferential statistics. So here, what is hypothesis? Hypothesis is nothing but the statement of assumption regarding a population parameter. Say for example, you are going to analyze what is in corona case itself, new vaccines are coming up. So they are testing these vaccines on the patients. So you would like to make an assumption that the vaccines that that is tested on the patients are going to have effect on the are going to have effect or not going to effect. You have to go to find out. So this is the assumption that you're going to make for your study. Then what is the null hypothesis? Null hypothesis statement that the researcher wants to disprove. Say for example, say I have taken mu1 and mu2. So two variables are there, and two variables are equal. So you put that as the null hypothesis. Say for example, there is male and female. Okay, in coronavirus case, male and female have are equal contributors towards the. But in reality, you know that this you want to disprove, correct? So that will become the null hypothesis. And on the other hand, alternative, you the statement of assumption that the researcher wants to prove. So in this case, we have put not equal. So you know from the past that the male and female are not don't have the equal contribution towards the coronavirus case. Okay, so that will be the example for null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis. I hope you have understood. So I'll stress this again, that null hypothesis is nothing but the statement of assertion that researcher wants to disprove, and alternative hypothesis is the statement that the researcher wants to prove. So an example I have given to you. Another example I have given here, as there is no significant difference between boys and girls with regard to the 12th marks, and there is the alternative goes, there is, I'm sorry here, there is no here, you can make it as there is significant difference between the different boys and girls with regard to the 12th marks. Then level of significance. Level of significance refers to the probability of error expected in the result. So normally for the researcher follow 1%, 5%, and 10% error in the study. So typically the probability will be written in 0.01 in the 1% case, and 5% 0.05, and 10% 0.10. So generally speaking, 5% is taken into account for testing the statistical results. Next is the decision rule. The decision rule here is that if a probability value is less than the level of significance. So for that, first we have to understand what is probability value. The probability value is nothing but, see, I'll explain it to you. The probability value tries to determine whether there is evidence to reject the null hypothesis. That is the meaning of, so it helps or determines whether there is evidence to reject the null hypothesis. So here, sorry. Here you can, I've explained with a few technical terms. Please understand. If you don't understand, I'll repeat it again. The first thing is when you calculate manually, the results from statistical analysis, say any statistical test, say regression, or from chi-square, or from t-test, any t-test, you calculate the t-test value, okay, and you get the observed value or the calculated value, and you get the degrees of freedom, and what you do, you obtain the table value. So for the decision rule, you have to compare the calculated value with the table value, and if the calculated value is greater than the table value, reject the H0, and if it is less than table value, you accept the H0. And then now in this, when you apply the softwares, like for example R or the SPSS or SAS, Stata, MATLAB, etc. You get the calculated value. For t-test, you get a calculated value, and you also obtain the degrees of freedom. And you don't you don't calculate the table value. Instead, there we get the probability value. We get the probability value, and that we I have just put TV, that we represent as TV here. So what we do for decision rule, we compare the probability value with the calculated value. So here the probability value when probability value is greater than calculated value, we accept the H0, and when the probability value is less than calculated value, we reject the H0. And I have explained with the numbers, that is, say that suppose there is the calculated value is 1.5, and you take 5% level of significance, and the probability value at 5% level of significance, that is 0.05, is greater than the calculated value 1.550, then we accept the H naught. Okay, suppose it is less, say for example the CV is 0.05 or 0.01. So in that case, the probability value will be less than calculated value, and we reject the H naught. So this is how technically it goes. So with an example I have given here, I will in forthcoming slides it will be there. So here the decision rule says that the probability value when compared to the calculated value, we reject the H naught, and probability value when greater than the calculated value, we accept the H naught. So here this is the type 1 and type 2 error that occurs basically in the statistics. The type 1 error occurs when we reject an H naught when it is supposed to be true, and type 2 error occurs when we accept the H naught when it is false. So next very important thing that is here is one-tail test and the two-tail test. So here when we will consider the one-tail test and the two-tail is depends upon the your null hypothesis and alternating hypothesis. Suppose you have null hypothesis as equal to sign and alternative when we say that is not equal to. So in that case we apply two-tail test, and when we have the null hypothesis as equal to or greater than or equal to, and when alternative you are not sure whether it is no, more than a particular value or not. So it is one-tail test. When it is less than the sample, this is U is the population mean and M is the sample mean. So when population mean is less than the sample mean for the alternative hypothesis, we use one-tail test, and that is left tail. And when the alternative hypothesis is say greater than, and we use right-tailed test. So here graphically I have stated one tail we use left tail we use where we have 0.05 on the left hand side, and on the right tail test we have 0.5 on the positive side. Okay, and then two tail test we take 5% is divided into two equal halves, 0.25 and 0.25 on the 0.025 and 0.025 on the left hand right side. And I have clearly stated what is the rejection region and the acceptance region. If the calculated value falls on the rejection region, then you reject it, and on the acceptance region you accept it. Then the next thing very important is the process of testing hypothesis. First you determine the objective. Okay, what is your objective, study objective? As here it goes, the vaccine testing, okay, is the objective, whether it is created an impact or it is going to be effective or not. Then you have to make assumptions, then state the null hypothesis, then find out the sampling distribution and critical region, and compute test statistics and probability value, and the last one is to make the decision rule. So here determine the objective of testing. I have given the objective as to find out the effectiveness of medicine for coronavirus. So here the assumptions are that what is the scale of measurement, what are type of data that you're going to use. So here data is a simple random sample from the population. You're going to get it, and say for example, a set of positive coronavirus cases you're going to choose, and you're going to divide them into two. Say one set you can divide it equally, as from 100 sample you're going to do it 50 non-control, or you're not going to do any vaccine testing for them. You're going to use the traditional method of treatment, and the next one you're going to use the vaccine. So these are the two sets of this one. So what kind of data it is? So it is, you can say that in this case it will be a grouping variable and nominal category. And another one is where you can have it pre and post. That the same set of data. Earlier you were given the traditional medicine, and the next phase of the study, you're giving a new vaccine to the same set of people. So in this case, it will be a pre-testing and post-testing. So I'm going to use pre-testing and post-testing. So it will be a two variable, and it will be a ratio kind of data ratio. So it will be absolute data. So what is the result that you're going to get it? The say, for example, the result is that whether the person is having a high immunity capacity or not. So it is you're going to find out whether there is a normal distribution or not, and you're going to take a large sample. Say, for example, 1,000 sample maximum, and you're going to find out whether there is a homogeneity of variance or not. Then you're going to build the null hypothesis, alternative hypothesis. So null hypothesis will be that there is the vaccine did not have any impact on the positive coronavirus patients, and alternative will be the vaccine did have impact on the positive coronavirus cases. So another different hypothesis can be written for this. There is no significant difference between the pre-vaccine test and the post-vaccine test, and subsequently for the alternative. And the statistical tool that you're going to use here is paired t-test, which will tell you whether there is a significant difference in the vaccine that you have given to the patients. Then you're going to build the critical region. Critical region is nothing but the level of significance that you're going to design, whether it is 1%, 5%, or 10%. So generally 5% you can take it and decide on one tail or two tail. So here, since it is paired t-test, what you are going to say, one is equal to the other one, and the alternative is not equal to. So you can go for two-tail test. So here, confidence interval, another term which is very important for the researcher is confidence interval. Confidence interval is nothing but to what percentage of error that you are expecting. Suppose it is 1% error, the confidence interval here is 99%. 99% of your result is going to be accurate. So if it is 5%, it is 95% confidence interval, and your result is accurate to the extent of 95%. And subsequently for 10%, the confidence interval will be 90%. So here, you have to next step is you have to compare the test statistics with the probability value. As I mentioned earlier, the calculated t value, paired t statistics, here we have obtained as say 1.34, and the probability value that they have got is 0.025 at 5% level of significance. So what will be the result? The result will be that probability value 0.025 is less than calculated value 1.34. So this is how you compare it. After comparison, you take the decision. The decision will be that we reject the null hypothesis and accept the alternative hypothesis. So here the inference is that the vaccine had impact on the patients with coronavirus positive. So hope you understood this. So inferential statistics further goes with the testing of the outliers, etc. These are the things that you should do prior to the applying the statistical tool. Checking for missing values, declaration of data type, classification of groups, assumptions to be carried out correctly, identification of outliers, check the reliability and the level of significance, and do the descriptive analysis. Very importantly, you have to do it to understand the profile of the respondents or the observation. Then to test the outliers, this is one of the method through IQR, interquartile range, where you calculate the quartile 1 and quartile 3, and you map it through box plot. Box plot is a very important visual data visualization media, where you can do lot of analysis. So here you can check that the quartile 1 and quartile 3 is specified as the box left hand side and the right hand side. So more clearly, I would have explained in this particular slide, where the for quartile 1 represents the 25th percentile of the data set, and the quartile 3 represents 75th percentile of the data set. And in the box, you can see a line which represents the median, and median is nothing but the quartile 2. Then here, very important, you can say that towards the left hand side, there is a box plot which ends here, minimum value, with a minimum value. And here at the extreme right hand side, you can see with the maximum value. And beyond the maximum value, it is quartile 3 plus 1.5 interquartile range. And here on the left hand side, it is quartile 1 minus 1.5. So it is the beyond this left hand side, if you see, there are few data which are considered to be outliers. They don't fit in the normal distribution. If you take those out, you will have a perfect normal distribution. And on the right hand side also, you can see few data points where these data points are removed or outliers are removed. You will get a reliable answer and accurate answer for your result. So this is one of the very important technique for removing the outliers. I'll show you, and this is regression also, it can be used for identifying the outliers through normal QQ method, or for okay. And then the techniques, we'll talk about the techniques now. Statistical techniques, they are parametric and non-parametric. Parametric techniques assume that the data are normally distributed, and non-parametric techniques assume they are not normally. You can go ahead with the techniques when your data are not normally distributed, and it is based on mean value, and non-parametric are based on the median value. These are the two important things that you have to know. And the various tests that you can apply in your study are parametric one sample t-test, independent t-test, chi-square, one-way ANOVA, paired t-test. And non-parametric you can apply Kolmogorov-Smirnov test, Mann-Whitney test, Kruskal-Wallis, Wilcoxon, Friedman correlation. So I have divided that into univariate, multivariate, bivariate. In univariate, where you have only one set of observation, and you can divide that into interval ratio and nominal ratio data statistics. Under the interval ratio, you can apply the one sample t-test chi-square case, and nominal you can apply the Kruskal-Wallis run test, binomial, Mann-Whitney, independent, etc. Bivariate, you can go for correlation, simple regression, paired t-test, and Wilcoxon. Paired t-test probability assumption, and Wilcoxon non-probability assumption. And these are the multivariate data analysis, where you have more than more than two variables for your analysis. And there are two different categories. One is the where you have dependent variable and independent in definition, and another where the set of data are interdependent to each other. And you can use canonical correlation, multilinear regression, discriminant analysis, MANOVA, ANCOVA, etc. And for interdependence, you can use factor analysis, cluster, then multidimensional scaling, neural network. And these are the new statistical tools that you can apply for your scientific purpose. that is reinforcement, natural language processing, image processing, etc. The other statistical tools that you come across here is the measure of association, dimensional reduction, etc. Okay, so these are the a few very frequently used by the data scientists. Next, I'm going to teach you how regression analysis can be done through R. So for that, I will explain multiple linear regression in detail. What does it do? The multiple linear regression tries to find out the relationship between the dependent variable and the independent variable. So here in this example, I have taken two important variables. They are a study for cars. That is the speed and the distance. The two variables that I've taken into account for the studies. Distance that is a car that has obtained with the help of the speed that the car moves. So here I want to find out whether there is a relationship between these two and whether the speed influences the distance. Whether speed has influenced the distance. So that is the assumption that we have to make. That is there is influence. There is no influence of the speed on the distance, and alternative hypothesis will be whether there is no influence of the speed on the distance. The regression equation will be y is equal to a plus bx. So here x will be the speed and y will be the distance. So here objective I have stated relationship between the dependent and independent, degrees of influence, how much we are going to find out, and to predict in future if we increase the speed, what the distance will be covered by the car. So here the data type is the scale, or you can say a ratio, scale, metric, absolute, all mean the same. Ratio is the data type, and here I'm going to use say 100 I have written here. You can take minimum 100. Okay, and your assumption is that there is a linear relationship between the dependent and the independent, and there is normal distribution, and there is no if you have multiple independent variables apart from speed, if you have any other variable, such as, say for example, the engine that they have used, the engine definitely will have an influence on the distance that they have covered, and it will increase the efficiency of the car. So the speed and the engine should not be related to each other. That is the meaning of the no multicollinearity. And homoscedasticity means the equal variance or homogeneity of the variance should be avoided. This assumption states that the variance of error terms are similar across the values of the independent variables. So error that you consider, error term is very important for the regression, and there should be equal variance of errors. Then yeah, okay, straight away I will go to our presentation. I hope you do along with me, so that it will be easier for you to do it. So here R Studio I will open. I'll open the R Studio, and you know that there are 4 windows. Okay, and you have the script, R script here on the top left. Below you have console, and here you have environment, and here you have the help window. Okay, and here on the script, you can write all your coding here, so that you can do some editing very easily. If you do directly in console, it is very difficult to do. So you try to write the coding. So as I said, I'm going to do a simple linear regression where there is only one dependent variable and one independent variable. So here dependent variable is the distance, and independent variable is the speed. So the data set is already there in the R library, and I'm just if you can attach it, okay, or if you don't have, you can load the library mass and then go recall the car database. So what you can do is, first you can attach the car, okay, select the attach car, and then you can run it so that it will be, okay, attached. So you can see in the console window where the car data set is attached. Suppose you want to see the data set. So what you can do is, you can write view cars, and you can run it so that you get the data set you can visualize here. Yeah, see, you can see the data set, speed and distance. Okay, distance is given, and speed is given, and for the observation of 50. Okay, so for a simple representation of the data, I'm explaining in a more simpler way. So next thing that you can go back to the coding script, and next thing you can find out what are the variables that are there in these. So you can click the names, type names and cars, type name and cars, and you can run. So you can see here in the console window, you can see that you have variable speed and distance. Okay, so next thing we are going to do is go for the scatter plot for finding out the linearity. So for finding out the linearity, you can go for plot. You can type this plot, 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 okay, and in the brackets you can give the data set name cars, and put a dollar sign to go for the specific variable that you want. So that is speed, and then the second variable that we have is cars. Distance, and you have the in the data set cars. So you select this, you write this code in this, or you can directly write in the console, and then you run this, and in the help window, or you can see where the file plots package help viewer window is there. You can see the scatter plot, okay, between the car and speed and distance. So speed is taken in the x-axis, and y is taken in distance is taken in the. So you can see there is an positive relationship between the speed and distance, and for what we are finding out linearity, that is when one increases, the other also increases. That is clearly shown here with the scatter plot. So we go ahead with the next one. Suppose you want with the smoothing line, you want a regression line between these two variables. You can go with this scatter smooth. Okay, scatter smooth, this one you can apply, and you can run it, and you will get a smoothing line in the scatter plot. So this will be easy for you to say whether there is a linearity or not. Okay, so either one you can use it. Next, we go for the box plot for identifying the outliers. So for outliers, this par mf rho is equal to c 1, 2 is for getting the two variables adjacent, okay, in the plot window. So if that is not required also, so you can straight away go to box plot. You can type box plot. You can type box plot cars. Car is the data set name, and the speed is a variable, and the main is required to get a title, there on the top. Okay, so here select this and run it. You will get a box plot. So when you plot this, you can see the heading with the speed, and that is the meaning of this main equal to speed means you will get the heading. And the important thing is the box plot. So in this box plot, you can see that outliers are not mentioned here, right? Outliers are not there actually. So we go to the second one. We will see whether it has an outlier there. For the second one, same coding, you type it, box plot, cars dataset, dollar distance, and then main is equal to distance, and run the set. And here you can see that there is one data, one particular observation, okay, where it is out of this particular IQR. Okay, so here we want to know what is that particular data. So for that, what you can do is with the value you can obtain it. So here you can type for with the outlier with value. Okay, so outlier with value, you go to box plot, type the data set, dollar speed, and main speed here as the title, then sub is equal to paste, open the bracket, outlier rows, okay, colon, close the quote, comma, box plot dot stats cars dollar speed dollar out. Okay, so this is how you have to write the coding. Don't worry, all these codings will be available in the help or in the Google, so you need not worry. If you type what you wanted from the R, you can type it in the Google and you will get the coding. So here the basic thing that you have to understand is the procedure and sequence in which you want to take the study. So here I want to find out the outlier, the data set, what it is. So for both, I'm going to do it together. Okay, so select this, and okay, both the variables you select together and run the command. Okay, and you will get here, this is the distance, and with the for this particular variable, your outlier row is 20. So when you check the data here, okay, when you check the car set here, it is here in the window, script window, you can check this 120 is odd man out, which is say all the other okay, all the other variables are below 100, and this is only the variable which is odd man out. So here you can say this is an outlier. Okay, and you can also check with the summary on mean also, how it is different from the standard deviation, etc. So next we go after you have found out the outlier, you can remove the particular case, okay, where the 120 is there, and then perform the analysis again once again. So for now I haven't removed it, but in real case you can remove when you have more than handsome number of outlines. Next thing, that is you have to find out the normal distribution. Normal distribution of the data can be obtained by writing the code plot, okay, just plot density. Okay, these two are very important, plot and density, and then the data set name and the variable. So this is how, once you start doing it, it will be easier for you. You will understand each and every term. So here plot is very important, density is very important. So plot, density, data type, and the speed. Okay, and the next one is the distance. For both I am going to run the normal distribution curve. So here you can see Okay. Okay, here you're only seeing the first one. Here it is the distance. Okay, in distance, how the normal curve is. So you can see at the end, no, 120 is making no, this thing, but on an average, it is no, normal distributed. To some extent, say 90 percentage, this is normally distributed. And you can also check with the help of skewness and kurtosis. Hope you have understood what I taught in the um, beginning. That is, kurtosis should be near to 0 and kurtosis should be near to 3. So we will check the kurtosis and skewness of the these two variables. And how you can do is, for this you have to install. For this you have to install package movements for package movement and the library movements. So these two you try to install. Okay, so this will be sometimes what happens, your system will not no agree to it. It is denied. For me it has denied. So you type these okay, it is asking me to restart R. So okay, now it has installed. Let me check whether this is working. No, error, permission denied. So I will restart this once again. Please okay, I will do that at the end, kurtosis and this one. Okay, so next we will go to correlation. Correlation, we want to know how far these two are correlated with each other. Okay, so you can write COR and cars data set and the variable. Both you have to take it together to find out the correlation between the two. So you run the this one and you get the result of 0.80. So 0.80 is highly correlated. That is positively correlated, and when one increases to an 80 percentage, the other also increases. So here that is the inference that you make here. Okay, and I have taught you the plot. This one, if you plot, it will give you the okay, the scatter plot diagram. So this also proves that there is a linearity in it, and etc. Now we are going to build the model. The model here is that y is equal to a plus bx. That is, y is the distance and x is the speed. Y is the dependent variable and x is the independent variable. And here the model, I have given the name as R as the model name, and the model, okay, is have to be, the model name is given, and you have to build the regression model. So the regression model is denoted as LM in R. Okay, LM, and LM you are going to declare both the variables, that is distance is y and in relation to speed, and the data that set that you're going to take it into account is a cars. So this is how you're going to write the coding for getting the model. The model here is the R. R is nothing but the y is equal to a plus bx, and y is the distance and x is the speed. So when you put this coding and you run it, okay, you run. After running, you cannot see the result. So for result, what you have to do, print R. So okay, so you can see in the window this particular the linear regression is been executed. It is executed, but the results are not been seen. So result will be seen when you print R. Okay, R is the model, R model. So here you can see the coefficient values. The coefficient values are for the intercept. Intercept is the constant. A is the constant and B is the slope. So A value is minus 17.579 and the speed, okay, the slope p value, the coefficient value of speed is 3.9332. So the inference that you can make have to be with the help of the probability value. If we will have to check whether this speed has a significant effect or influence on the distance or not. So that can be obtained with the help of the summary. Okay, summary. We have to go with the summary. I will type the summary. Summary R. Summary R. It will give you the whole statistical results. So here, okay. So now you can see here residuals. It is given the residuals. The minimum value of the residual is so much, minus 29 point, and the maximum is 43. And you can see the console window, coefficients. The coefficients, earlier we had seen only these two. Now along with the standard error, t value and the probability value. The probability value is very important for a hypothesis testing. So here, as I mentioned, that you have to compare the t value. This is the calculated value and this is the probability value. This is the probability value. So here you can see the constant when you have this 1 star and 3 star. The 1 star and 3 star has a very important significance or the meaning to it. That is, you can see down here that where 3 star is mentioned, it is at 1% significance value, and the 2 star is significant at 10%, and the 1 star at 5%. Okay, so these are the few interpretations. So here you can see that this speed for the intercept we are not interested, okay, but we are most interested in the whether speed has a significant relationship between the distance or not. So in the probability value you can see 1.49 e minus 12. So this is 0.0000 something for 12. After the 12 digits you get the 149. So definitely this is highly significant at 1%. So you can say the probability value, okay, the probability value is less than the table value or the calculated value, okay, 9.464. So okay, and here also you can say, and what you can do is you can say that the speed has influence on the distance. So with this, the inference is made, and further inferences can also be made with the help of the multiple R square value, adjusted R square value, which is shown down here. So here you can say that the adjusted R square value is 0.6438. Okay, that means that the 64% of the variation in speed in distance is explained due to the speed 64. So there is a chance for another variable if you include, as I said, the efficiency, the engine. If you add engine variable into it, it may increase to 80%, 0.80, etc. So the speed has influenced to an extent of 64%. And another important is F test, whether this model is fit enough for the regression analysis. And the p value will tell you the 1.49 e to the e minus 12 is highly significant at 1%. So you compare the p value with the level of significance, and you say that it is highly significant, and that it influences, and the model is good enough to explain. So next thing you can do is for prediction. For prediction, the last concept, the prediction can be done with the help of fitted R. Fitted R, predictor, you can go for prediction. So these are the predicted values. If you type fitted, and the R is the model. R is the model. So here you get the predicted values. Predicted values. Okay, and you type, you plot both the fitted model and the observed, or whatever the actual values is. You plot and check whether there is a deviation. Okay, so there is not much deviation. You can see here is the actual values and here is the fitted value. So you can see the in the plot that both are similar to the actual values. Some deviations are there, but as it said 64%, if we add one more and we get the 80% adjusted R square, your closeness might be there much closer, but this is not bad. This is not bad enough. Okay. Okay. Next thing that we want to do is find out the predicted value. Okay. Find out the predicted value when the speed is 100, 110, 125, or you can change it to 100. You can make it 95, 95, 100, 105, etc. Okay, so you can predict the values of distance when the speed is 95, 100 and 105. Okay. Okay, so here are the three predicted values. When your speed value is 95, your distance is 355. Okay, and your 100, it is 375, etc. Next thing is the confidence interval, where we want to check whether whatever we have predicted is within the confidence interval. You remember the confidence interval that I mentioned to you? 95% of 5% of level of significance will reflect the 95%. Okay, 10% 90. So here let me write 95 confidence level. Okay, and you can. Okay, so here you get the fitted this one, and the confidence level, the lower level and the upper level. Okay, with the 10% level of significance and 90 sorry, this is 95% confidence level. So here the value, the predicted value should lie between 304 and 445. So but our value is 375, which is okay within it. And for the second one, you can check, this is also within the lower and the upper. And the third one also, you can check whether it is within the lower and the upper. So all the three are satisfying. So you can say that your results, predicted results, are accurate enough. Okay. So this is how this is what the regression, simple regression is applied in the R, and you can add few more variables into it, and it will become a multiple linear regression. And there are different types of codings that you have to do it, and you can check with the help category, and you can do it easily. It is not very difficult. Okay, so as I'm not very technically sound enough, I have tried this R. So you can also do it since you are a technical person, right? You all are, I hope you all are no CSE and IT specialized people, and you can apply it in the Python also. Thank you for the opportunity given, and I hope everybody has understood. I know that I am quite a bit fast enough. If you really want the materials to it, I can forward it to the organizers and they can forward it to you. Thank you, participants, and I hand over the mic to the organizer, Dr. Sumati.
Ma'am, wait for any questions, ma'am. Ma'am, any questions, ma'am?
Sorry. Yes. Can I on my camera?
There's a person with a question. What is the statistical power? Mr. Anand Vishwanathan is asking, ma'am.
1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute. I will close this. 1 minute.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, sir.
Ma'am, I am Satyendra Singh.
Okay.
Ma'am, please provide the PPT for this today session, if
Yes, sir. Yes,
possible.
sir. Definitely, sir. Definitely, sir.
So,
What
ma'am,
is the sir? What is the feedback, sir? I am very fast.
sir, ma'am, already filled.
Yes, sir. I didn't get you, sir.
So, ma'am, today's session is wonderful and very nice session, ma'am.
Thank you,
And
sir. Thank you, sir.
ma'am, so, ma'am, please provide the PPT
Definitely,
if
definitely,
possible.
sir. Definitely, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Hello?
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 Hello, can you hear me? I can hear you, sir.
Yeah, good morning, madam. Good
morning, sir.
explanation. Yeah,
Yes, sir.
it's a good explanation. And I just
Yes.
want to have the detailed explanation on reinforcement learning, madam.
Sir, that is just I can give you the meaning of it, but detailed one I think technical people will give. The reinforcement is nothing but, sir, where you have repeated activities. Where you have repeated activities, you train them. You train those activities, and you come out with an outcome or the result. Okay, on the basis of the previous activities. So again, you try to retrain the activity.
That seems to be somewhat regression analysis also, right, ma'am? It is
Reinforcement.
It is somewhat similar to the regression.
Yeah. Actually, regression, you get a set of data. So that is a structured data that you get. So I think reinforcement is where you do experiment data, and then you convert that into data, and then you can do it. Actually, yeah, you understood what I'm saying. You do an experiment. You do an experiment data.
I understand that somewhat similarities are there between them.
Yes. You can apply a regression for the reinforcement theories.
Thank you, madam. And one more question. Can you provide a set of data sets available for this data science at a whole at once through one PPT or through some session or so, through some video? All
you
the
want
data
sets. Okay.
Yeah, data sets.
I'll try to do that, sir. I'll try to do it.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you, madam.
Thank you, sir.
Good explanation also. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? It's okay, Prema. Thank you so much, Dr. Priya Sethuraman, for taking your valuable time off your busy schedule and bringing interest to us, one of the toughest phases of data science, the math or statistics for data science. Your talk has enlightened our participants into a probability and stats needed for computing. Your real-time example using COVID data was very interesting. Your patience to teach the outliers and different percentiles are very great. Thank you so much once again, ma'am. Thank you, participants, for an active participants. Tomorrow the session starts at 10 a.m. sharply.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. So, thank you. And Sumati, I want to speak some few words.
Tell me, ma'am.
Yes. I thank the organizers for inviting me as a expert speaker. I'm really happy for that and honored. And special thanks goes to Sumati, my friend, who has believed me as one of the expert in this. And I hope I have done justice to it. I have done justice, Sumati.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Very nice, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much. And I thank my family member, my husband, and particularly my son. Though both of them very cooperative in when I was preparing my PPT, because their contribution is immense. If they didn't cooperate, I wouldn't have done like this. So thank you personally. I thank them. Okay, and
thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, then the HODs of IT department for giving me this opportunity, and the management of college for organizing this webinar. Thank you, Sumati, and the team.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you all.
Thank you. Shall I close?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for joining.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.